If we have this conversation in 5 years, and I hope we're both around to have it, what do you think that we will be discussing as the major issues in value evidence and access for the pharmaceutical industry?
Oh, that's a whole nother topic. So, you know, how we define value has undergone a lot of evolution over the last 60 years. But that is tied with how we finance medical research and how we finance healthcare delivery.
Mhm.
And the anchor for that, you mentioned transplantation for kidneys, but the anchor for that goes back to dialysis in the 1960s when it first came to be. And I remember watching a documentary in Seattle where they opened one of the first dialysis centers, and they had a expert panel, including not experts, but also people from the community, trying to decide who was going to get dialysis, who would live and who would die.
Mhm.
So, I mean, life and death, it's not, you can't put a number on that in some respects, when especially if it's you or a loved one.
Mhm.
Cost effectiveness came into the conversation in the late 70s, early 80s, and it certainly is a very important approach to try and think about how you make allocation choices of resources. But we know that cost effectiveness is not the only thing that is considered when we make resource allocation choices. So that's why NICE has backed away from pure cost effectiveness and now uses different adjustments for oncology and rapidly fatal diseases, because we feel that there is a ethical reason to be more considerate of those.
Mhm.
And we also know, and whenever I quote this, people laugh at me. If you go back to Kenneth Arrow, who got a Nobel Prize for decision-making in pluralistic societies, that you cannot maximize everybody's benefit and meet everybody's preference. It's impossible. It doesn't mean you can't get close. And by getting close, then the way to do that is through a deliberative process where all stakeholders are involved and everybody feels like they got a fair hearing and they got a fair shake. So when you make a decision, losers feel like they're doing okay. I mean, one of the assumptions of cost effectiveness analysis is Pareto optima, in which the winners can compensate the losers. Well, you can't compensate the losers when you're making decisions about access to healthcare.
Mhm.
And then more recently, we now see that some of the newer therapies that are coming out, some of the newer therapies which are very, very expensive, and some of the gene therapies which are ultra virally expensive, like $3 million,
Mhm.
those expenses cannot be reconciled with our current scheme for financing healthcare. So whether you think it's financing of innovation or you think it's how we're going to pay for treatment, this does not work out with our current schema. And I don't care whether it's the single payer system in Europe or it's the non-system of multiple payers in the US. Our system was not set up for this. It worked well when drugs represented a very small proportion of our healthcare spend. It doesn't work well when it's now going to become a significant and growing portion of our healthcare spend. So that means that the framework for value that we've had in place and largely informed by cost effectiveness is going to have to be modified.
Mhm.
Either we're going to have to modify the threshold
Mhm.
and start saying that, cost effectiveness has this threshold. They've already recommended that we move the threshold from $50,000 per quality adjusted life year to $100,000 to $150,000 quality adjusted life year. But even then, when you do that, if we gave every person in the country who were clearly indicated to get a treatment and we were only giving it to the right patient at the right time and in the right manner at the right dose, we would bankrupt our healthcare system. We would bankrupt our economy. We can't afford to provide all of that at these cost effectiveness thresholds. So what do we do with that? I don't have the answer to that, but I do know that disruption is coming. And disruption is coming now with the Inflation Reduction Act. And so the nose of the camel is under the tent. If the government can start negotiating prices in the US, which is the cash cow for industry worldwide, it's where the industry makes most of the money, what's going to happen, you know? And they're going to be relying more and more on real world data and real world evidence to show you have the value. And measuring that value is going to be problematic when the cost of treatment becomes exorbitantly expensive. And so what's going to happen? Well, one thing that people fear is that the industry is going to invest less in new drug development. And they're going to focus their drug development on those areas which are not covered by the Inflation Reduction Act, or in areas where they know that the value can be most readily demonstrated, and shy away from the others where there is less opportunity to demonstrate value. Or they could end up shrinking. They could say a vertically integrated pharmaceutical company doesn't make sense anymore. We'll let startups take all the risk with the drug discovery, and then we'll just license them when they're in phase 2A or somewhere thereabouts, and we'll bring the ones that are most likely to have value and be successful and get regulatory approval. We'll take those to market. That could be another way things go. I am not Nostradamus, but I do know that the current marketing model, the prevalent marketing model that is the engine for the economic model of pharmaceutical companies, which is to come out with blockbuster drugs and charge as much as you can for them to fund every other drug that doesn't make it to the market, I'm not sure that that is going to be sustainable.
Mark, is there anything else that you would like to touch on?
No, we've had a nice conversation. Thank you very much.
I've enjoyed it so much.